Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming. Yeah, we're going to be talking about some recent Browsertrix updates. I realized before we jumped in, many of you are probably familiar with Browsertrix already. For those of you who are not, Browsertrix is a open source end-to-end web archiving system, basically. Wraps around Browsertrix crawler with an intuitive UI, and we've been sort of expanding the scope of what you can do within this tool. So what we're going to be talking about today are some of the things that are different from last IIPC. One of the ones I'm most excited about is public collections. So Browsertrix has had the concept of collections for a while. It's part of our curation and sharing features within the system. And so this can be, if you want to divide your web content into specific views so that you can share that with someone through like an unlisted URL, that was something that you could do already. It's also useful if you have a crawl that may need some patching. If there's like an interactive map or dashboard, you could use our archive web page Chrome extension to capture just those pages that need the patch and then combine automated crawls and those patches seamlessly via a collection. What's new is that we've gone from having collections being something that's just private for authenticated users logged into your organization and unlisted collections where you could share a URL to actually having a public profile page with fully public collections. So you can point people to a URL. That person doesn't need to be a Browsertrix user or log in or anything like that. And they see this display where you have the different collections visible, some basic information. You can easily click into each one to view the replay and additional information. It's fairly customizable in terms of the view, so you're able to set like either custom thumbnails or pick a thumbnail from an actual snapshot within that collection to set as the sort of cover image for the collection. You can also choose to have the collection start with basically a list of the pages or to start on a particular URL, so you can kind of customize how someone comes into the web archive. Yeah, and this is an example here of our own profile that we've used for the Webrecorder US government web archive, so sharing our selection of the end-of-term crawling work, capturing US government sites as they disappear and change in the last few months. And Ilya is going to be talking in a little bit about another way we're providing insight into that data. Another thing I'm really excited about, I think it opens up a lot of doors, is we now have support for crawling proxies. So even though our hosted instance is hosted in Amsterdam, and if you're self-hosting, it's on whatever your local infrastructure is. If you want to crawl through different IPs, through different countries, we have the ability to connect to SOCKS 5 proxies. So that can be like a commercial SOCKS 5 proxy service, or we can do it via SSH into any server anywhere. So this means if you want to use our hosted service and not have to maintain it, but you want your crawling to come from your local infrastructure or from a virtual machine that you got off of a different provider, we can very easily set that up so that all the websites that you're viewing see you as coming from either a particular IP or a particular country, which allows us to get around geo-restrictions. It also can help with like whitelisting if there's, say, like a newspaper website that you're crawling and they want to know the IPs of the crawlers so that they can allow greater permissions than they would for just any crawler off of the internet. I think it's really cool. We've also significantly been working on trying to internationalize Browsertrix. So the interface already had localization, as in the strings were already able to be translated within the interface. But in the past year, we have set it up so that you can actually translate the interface and easily change it within the actual UI. So you can see like under the user settings, there's this sort of, it's still got the little beta tag on it. But you can choose your preferred language from a short list of languages that we have translations for already, as well as tell Browsertrix if you want to use like your default browser language settings for things like date formatting and these other things that vary between different languages and even locales, right? this is a screenshot. The text is fairly small, but you can see kind of like what this looks like using in French. This is the dashboard for that same Webrecorder US Government Web Archive organization. And you can see there's quite a lot translated here in French. It's not at 100% yet, but coming well along. And I want to give a special shout out to the Bibliothèque et Archives Nationales du Québec for providing the French translations. Carol, I'm your biggest fan, thank you. Speaking of, anyone's able to contribute translations to Browsertrix, we very much welcome and encourage them. You can see we're using the hosted Weblate service. They provide a nice free service for open source applications, which is wonderful. So far, we have about 80% translation in French, about 43% in Spanish. I think this might actually have increased a little bit since then, but we would love to see over time more and more translations in more and more languages so that Browsertrix is really more available for everyone to use.
I'm going to talk about some of the other stuff that we're working on. So another thing that we've just released is a new behavior. So one of the things that we try to do, and one of the hardest things with browser-based crawling is adding custom behaviors so that the browsers, so that as much of a page can be captured as possible for highest fidelity. And one of the new things that we've added is the auto-click behavior, which basically what that will do is allow you to configure the browser to click on all the links or optionally buttons or kind of a custom CSS selector on the page in an intelligent way without going off the page. So there's sort of the idea is to make it sort of do the best possible thing on or sort of the most reasonable thing on as many pages as possible that require this. So it's still a little bit experimental, as this always kind of is. But yeah, that's now available in the latest Browsertrix release. And it's a little bit of a preview of our workshop tomorrow, where we're going to be diving into custom behaviors and what it takes to create them in different ways. And yeah, this is another part of that. We also have, this is not yet released, but will be in time for tomorrow's workshop, where, yes, so you'll be the first to see this, where you could configure either a single script or a GitHub repo with custom behaviors that can run on, and you can specify a path and a branch if you're using GitHub repo, and those behaviors can run on a subset of pages in your crawl. And yeah, come to the workshop to learn more about how that works. And we'll also have documentation on that as well, updated. Let's see, what do we have? Yeah, well, one of the things that we did add over the past, I think probably 1 or 2 releases ago, is crawling defaults at the org level. So the crawl workflow has a lot of different settings, and it is now possible to configure a lot of them for your org so that you don't have to configure them every time for the crawl. And that includes, I think, most of the things like exclusions for the scope, various crawl and page limits, and yeah, the new custom behaviors will also be in this. Things like user agent, browser profile, and proxy can also be configured here to simplify creating new workflows. And then, yeah, we have this documentation updates. So we have the in-UI documentation that maps to each part of the crawl workflow, because that's sort of the, if you use Browsertrix, you probably started with creating a new workflow, and sort of important to understand what all the things, we've added more settings, and as we added more settings, it's important to kind of explain what they all are. And so now we have in-page documentation that appears on the sidebar. So there's a button in the top right that shows this, that expands to show the sidebar. What else? Crawler improvements, right? Okay, so So that was more about the Browsertrix UI. Then we have our command line Browsertrix crawler, which is a standalone tool, as well as integrated into the full Browsertrix app. And everything that's available through the UI is also available through the command line crawler, including the ability to run custom behaviors from GitHub and from a URL. The SOX 5 proxies are there. There's improvements to retrying, where there's actual retries now. HTTP auth support, various other improvements, including support for custom selectors. And let's see, yeah, what else? I think that there's probably other things that we're forgetting, but yeah. So we're constantly trying to improve the crawler. Some other things that are coming soon. Gosh, there's a long list of things in development, but one of the things that we have that will definitely be released soon is the ability to configure your own S3 bucket with Browsertrix. So right now, all the data goes into a single bucket that is configured per deployment. For our users who use a cloud service, we'll soon have the ability to configure your own S3 bucket or S3 compatible storage so that the data can go in different places automatically. We'll also be improving the subscription model to support more granular sort of kind of a pay-as-you-go approach, or basically having it calculate how much crawling time is used, since that's sort of our biggest cost in running Browsertrix in the cloud is the crawling time, since it takes up compute resources. So we're trying to make it as granular as possible so that we can support even users, anyone from. The idea is that we want to support anything from a national domains crawl eventually to users who only want to crawl a couple pages a year, and to be able to scale anywhere between there. And there are some other UX improvements, such as pagination that will be released soon as well, and sorting crawl workflows. What else do we have? Improvements to proxies. We're looking at the ability to, since rate limiting is becoming more and more of an issue, we're looking at ways that we could perhaps support like a reverse proxy, so that if you want to crawl through your own machine, that you could sort of proxy into Browsertrix, and then Browsertrix will crawl through your own machine and make that as easy as possible. So we're looking at ways to do that. Pausing and resuming crawls, I think, is also on the roadmap somewhere, and some other improvements, I think. And then finally, the other thing I wanted to briefly mention is one of the things that just worked on over the past month was a new approach to replay, and we've kind of demonstrated this with the US government archive, where it could actually use web archives to mirror an existing site, and the idea being that if you want to replace a site, or it's been taken down by the government, and you want to view the archive version with all the links intact, there's a way to do web archive replay such that you could link, such that the link structure is in place. And so this kind of demonstrates where you could basically take a us.gov site and add archive.us to the domain, and it will load the original site with the links intact. We've set it up with wildcard DNS so that it can basically map to any .gov site with a wildcard. And we have a blog post on the site that kind of goes into detail how that works. And we have a template on GitHub that sort of shows a simpler version of this. The idea being, if you have something like a DH project or something that a site that can no longer be maintained, but you want to retain the link structure and not redirect someone to a web archive, you could actually replace it in place with a web archive without having to change the site at all. So so there's a link to check that out if you like. And yeah, I think some time for questions.
Thank you.